Hey, fifth graders, I hope that you're doing well. Our next lesson for this week is on types of songs that helped make our music today, mostly way before the 1900s. We're talking all music that was from like after the Revolutionary War until about 1900. Before I get going into that, quick reminders. The school year is starting to come to a close, and I know some of you are just we're doing all that we can to survive. So long story short, I want to help you guys be successful. And for me, some of you might have noticed in Power School, I'm not creating standards other than our work habits. So as long as you're doing the assignments and doing them pretty well, you should have a 3. But there are many of you that haven't done any assignments or are behind in a couple assignments. So just a reminder, go back, try and finish what you can. That last week of school, I'll kind of give you some time to try and catch stuff up, okay? So please do that. If you have questions, let me know, all right? For this week, we're going to talk, like I said, about music after the Revolutionary War and how that kind of shaped our music today. So some things to think about. As the United States grew, so did our cities, our industries, and our music. We kind of talked about that last week. And because of this, we see music reflecting or talking about what was happening in the lives of everyday people. Now, newsflash, we talked about this a few weeks ago. These are folk songs. Folk songs are written by the common people, that means you and me. They're passed down for generations. So remember my old gray mule song that I talked about with my grandpa. And many times we don't know who wrote them, okay? And that's just because they were passed by word of mouth. Okay, if we look at music from after the Revolutionary War till about the 1900s, we really see how the US grew and what was really truly happening in real life. Okay, which is really important to notice because that's really all music is, even today. All right, so I'm going to move myself up here so you guys can see a little better. So we get a couple things that music was written about, different types or categories that we could group it in. Okay, we have songs of the Wild West. This is when you think of cowboys and old school westerns, if you've seen some of those on TV. That's kind of what we're referring to here. Um, Songs of the Wild West reflected lives of cowboys. And many times cowboys would take cattle on these long cattle drives from one city to the next. And this would force them to leave their families. And they had many dangerous encounters with wildlife and sometimes other people. Sometimes people would try and steal the animals. Sometimes they'd run into a group of Native Americans who were having conflict with other settlers in the area. So they sometimes would even get into trouble with other cowboys. Long story short, it wasn't as easy as you would think. And these cattle drives would take long lengths of time. And that would mean they'd be gone from their family at that time. So we have a whole bunch of songs that kind of are grouped about the Wild West. I only have a few down here. Some of you might remember the song Home on the Range. Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day. Okay, imagine these cowboys singing these songs, maybe as they're on horseback, but probably at night when they're stuck around a campfire, cooking their meals, looking up at the stars all by themselves or maybe with another person. Get along, little doggies. A doggie is not literally a dog, it was another name for a cattle. Or for cows, excuse me. Goodbye, old paint. We sang this one way back when you were little. Goodbye, old paint. I'm leaving Cheyenne. Goodbye, old paint. I'm leaving Cheyenne. Old Paint was the name of a horse, okay? And leaving old Texas. I'm bound to leave old Texas now. They've got no use for the longhorned cow. Okay, and that one too, I think we may have sung it. I don't remember for sure though. It's just a couple that you might be familiar with. Okay, and they all talk about what it was like to be out in the wild and by yourself essentially with your horse and these cows. Captain Obvious, songs about work, right? There was all kinds of things that were happening. As people settled in cities, more work became available. Why? Because the cities were growing. As people moved west, more work was needed. Why? Because the cities and the buildings and things like that needed to get built. Okay. Because a lot of work was what we would call hands on and required physical work, music was used to help pass time, keep people together so others won't get hurt. And I'll explain that in a second, and tell some really glorious stories of what work was like. Okay. So passing time is just like you and I might be outside mowing the lawn and listening to music. Okay. They would do that too, except they couldn't listen to it. So they would sing it. To keep people together so others wouldn't get hurt. Think of how the railroads were laid. They were laid down, but they didn't have machines to put those big, huge nails into the ground. That had to be done by a whole bunch of men. And literally, they would stand in a circle, and one person would hold this long, long railroad spike, like a giant nail. Well, I don't know about you, but I'd be a little bit nervous about all of the guys standing around in a circle with their huge sledgehammers, hoping that my hand wouldn't get smashed. Because essentially, it would only take one miss and I would have a broken hand. So, a lot of times, they would find a rhythm or a song to work together to. So that way people would all stay together and synchronized. Okay. And then tell glorious stories of what work was like. This is fun just because we get all kinds of ridiculous things, and I'll explain those in the songs below. So, songs that talk about work. Oh, do you remember sweet Betsy from Pike, who crossed the wide mountain with her boyfriend Ike? With 2 yoke of cattle, a large yellow dog, 2 Shanghai roosters, and some one Spartan hog. Okay. Um, and that talks about how they're going over to California for the gold rush. This song I bet you recognize. I've been working on the railroad all the livelong day. I've been working on the railroad just to pass the time away. Can't you hear the whistle blowing? Okay, you get the idea. And again, this song would be a song that they might have one person holding and everyone else is standing in a circle with their sledgehammers to try and keep everyone together. But as they're doing it, it's really describing life and what it was like there. Erie Canal. The Erie Canal was a canal that was built to connect a whole bunch of big waterways. Okay, that song, it's really long, but it really does tell the story of what it was like to dig up along the way. And there's so many more. Clementine, oh my darling, oh my darling, oh my darling Clementine, you were lost but not forgotten. Oh my darling Clementine. That one is about a gold miner who is going to have to give his daughter away to the banker because he can't pay his debt, and ends up finding this huge gold nugget and becomes rich. Kind of crazy. Okay, again, one of those glorious stories. All right. And then the last one, songs about the Civil War. So the Civil War was, again, I mentioned last week how there's quite a few different wars that happened in the United States before things finally started to settle. And the Civil War was where the North and South battled over lots of different things, but most specifically, they fought over slavery, whether we should have slavery in the country or not. And this is when Abraham Lincoln was president. Some of my history people, you guys know this, which is awesome. Um, so just like before, when we talked about the Revolutionary War, there was a whole bunch of music that came from this war that were about the war. Okay, but one of the most important types of music that comes from this era, this time, are spirituals. Okay, we talk about slavery, we talk about equal rights, And slaves, African slaves, at that time, you realize they had no rights. They were treated awful and had very little hope. So, a lot of times, as a result of this, they would take what they used to know from their African heritage and kind of mix it with the new traditions that were being forced upon them. Okay, and spirituals are just that. They're songs that were created by the African slaves that might have hidden messages. Now, that means they might help them escape from their owners and get to the north where they could be free. But a lot of times, usually, these spirituals wrote about how hard life was and wrote about a hope for a better future. Okay. Um, and they didn't stop after the Civil War, because think about how long it took for African Americans to really actually gain complete equal rights. That didn't happen until the 1960s, even past into the 1970s. Okay. Now, some songs that are really important that you might have heard that came from the Civil War are the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. More importantly, it goes, glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. A spiritual specifically from the Civil War with a hidden code is called Follow the Drinking Gourd. Follow the Drinking Gourd is referring to the Little Dipper. They would use hollow out gourds as a ladle so that they could drink water out of it. Now, the Little Dipper, those of you that know your stars, also shows the way to the north. So the song would sing, Follow the drinking gourd. And that meant follow the Little Dipper so you could go to the north. A song about war. When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah. When Johnny comes marching home again, hurrah, hurrah. You might recognize this one because the words were changed to the ants go marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah. Okay, very similar. All right, so that kind of wraps up our unit on folk music. Our exit ticket for this week is a little different format. I want you to answer all the questions. First of all, the first one is pretty simple because we've done it before. Go back in my slides and tell me, what is a folk song? Tell me a couple points from that. What was music written about after the war, after the Revolutionary War? So go back, look at the three main categories that I kind of gave you. That will help. What is a spiritual? Who wrote it? What was it about? And then last one, this is just out of my curiosity's sake. Did you recognize any of the songs that I sang? Which ones? If you didn't recognize any, that's totally okay too. But I'm guessing there's at least one in there that was like, yeah, I know that one. Okay, make sure you take some time, get this exit ticket done. Like I said, a reminder, if you have some that are missing, you can go back, you can answer them. Make sure you actually click submit. If you're not clicking submit, I have no way of knowing that your assignment is done. Okay. If you have questions, let me know. But otherwise, I hope you guys are doing well. I miss you so much. I wish you well. Bye.